You know, at one time, or sometime in our lives, the occasion will arise when you'll probably have to get up and say a few words, be it at a family occasion, in your workplace, socially, or whatever. And often when that happens, we're certainly not prepared, and it is a big thing for an awful lot of people. I have to say, even for myself, to get up and talk in front of people every time I do it, it's not easy. But there are people, and there is an organisation in these islands, and it's very strong in Ireland, called the Toastmasters, where you can go along, meet people, get up and get used to public speaking. And today we're joined by 3 members of Drogheda Toastmasters. I'm delighted to welcome Sue McKinney, Janet Graham and Vincent Smith to the show. You're all very welcome, folks. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Gerry.
Sue, am I right about that? Like, you know, I'm saying that for a lot of people, it happens, you're not prepared, first time ever, and you're stuck.
And you can't speak at all.
Yeah.
And all you can think of is, oh Lord, what am I doing? But we've all done it. I joined Toastmasters about 5 years ago for that same reason, for work. I have to meet customers, sometimes have to go out, have to talk to them, have to think on the spot the odd time as well. And you have to look a little bit professional in that. So I have to say Toastmasters definitely helped me overcome some of those fears.
What was it like when you went in the first night? Because I think this is often the big fear with Toastmasters. People say, taking that first step, going in there, did you take a big deep breath? Were you apprehensive going along?
I probably was, because I didn't know what Toastmasters was or anything like that. And the first night I went in actually was a competition night that Toastmasters run twice a year. And so it was a bit different to the format, but I sat down, listened, didn't have to take part in the night at all, just listened. Kind of liked it and said, sure, I'll come back again. But the one thing that I really liked was everybody was friendly and made me feel welcome there. And the next time they remembered my face, and unfortunately I'm like a bad penny, I keep turning up to the meetings.
Do you remember the first time you had to get up, you know, yourself and speak in front of everybody?
I remember my first speech, which was what we call the icebreaker speech, and standing up in front and taking that deep breath and just going for it. And it was a great experience when I got finished. And then everybody gave you a little bit of feedback. And it was lovely to see the encouragement from everybody that way, which was just nice. And then continued onwards and upwards, as my 2 colleagues here will tell you.
That icebreaker speech, there's no time defining on that when you have to do it, is there?
No, you can do it on your own time, so you can. Everything in Toastmasters is up to you, when you want to do it and how you want to do it. They give you guidelines, yes, but you are your own person to tell when you want to do it.
So there's no pressure, that's what I'm saying. There's
no pressure whatsoever.
But you will have to do it eventually, because you go there to learn how to speak. You can't sit there and say nothing forever. Let's bring in our second Toastmaster, Janet Graham. And you are a very new member, Janet, of the Drogheda Toastmasters.
Yes, I am. I was a member of 2 clubs in England, Milton Keynes and Bedford. And when I moved to Ireland, I was introduced to the Drogheda Toastmasters, and I love it here. And I find the people wherever I've gone, and I've been to many, many clubs in different parts of the world too, and I find the same atmosphere, welcoming, supportive. Everybody's just there to help you and encourage you as best they possibly can to try and improve.
So it's generic. You're going to get the same feeling,
right.
the same type of people, the same welcome atmosphere, no matter where you go.
That's true. And it's a lovely way of meeting people in another place, because that way you go there and you're instantly meeting people who are in the area.
How long are you living in the area here?
In Drogheda, 12 months.
So you're a short time here, and has it helped you to put down roots, spread your wings, etc.?
Certainly, yes. I've made a lot of really good friends.
Do you remember your first time? Why did you go? I'm curious always to find this.
Okay, right. What happened was that a friend of mine was terribly nervous having to go to interviews. So I said, I'll come along for a bit of moral support. And when I got there, I was absolutely bowled over about I knew nothing about Toastmasters. And I became so involved that I finished up in 4 years becoming president of my club. And I just get great pleasure in growing myself, but also helping other people and encouraging other people to take on different parts, not just speaking, because you see such a change in people as the time goes on, the way they become more relaxed and they're developing their personality and their confidence, and it's a great thing to see happen to people.
Have you used it to good effect in your own life, personally and professionally?
Yes, I have. I was in a profession where I did have to give a lot of speeches, but I have got grandchildren, and I frequently get them to speak to me, and I do topic sessions with them. And I encourage them all the time, so that when they are faced with this situation, they'll have a little bit more confidence.
Because that shyness, I think it's innate in us all, isn't it?
It is,
There's very
yes.
few people who are born with the, that bolshiness or whatever to
right.
go out there.
That's totally true. And when you've done it under people who are supportive and encouraging, then that means that when you have to do it for real, then you've got that confidence knowing that you've had people who've given you honest feedback. And they give you encouragement, but they also do tell you how you can improve. And that's really important.
Toastmasters are deeply involved with us here as well on LMFM in our Coca-Cola Great Debate every year, and I want to say a big collective thank you to you all for that. And the next man I'm going to bring in is a man who's chaired the judging panel on many a times, and I've come across him at the debates as well. Vincent Smith, thanks for joining us today. What's your story on Toastmasters?
I joined Toastmasters to be a member of a group. I love being in front of an audience. I'm more comfortable at the top table than I am in the audience. I debated with Macron and Ferma. I debated against the junior chamber in my younger days. Got away from it, and I found that any committee you get involved in, when you go along, it's in for spot the victim. You get the job of chairman or secretary straight away. But the Toastmasters is a different attitude, a different format completely. You're not given a job unless they know you can do it.
And when you're, it's your icebreaker speech, or you have a regular slot when you get up and speak, do you get to pick the subjects, or do they ever spring them on you, Vincent?
You pick, on the topics, it's sprung on you, but on your speeches, you pick your speech, but there's criteria you have to meet within the speech. Say, for example, the icebreaker, that's to get familiar with standing in front of an audience, discover skills that you didn't know you have and improving ones that you had. That's the object. If you take number 5, that's all about body language, eye contact, hand movement, not pacing across in front of an audience, but taking the whole audience in and using your space on the stage, as it were. And if you take number 8, it's using a prop. So every speech has a different criteria that you have to meet.
So all the nuances, all the things that you have to be aware of when you're preparing a speech, going to deliver to an audience, or even a small gathering, a family, a social one, a business, whatever, these 8 factors are all very important. You touched on some of them there that I was going to come on as well. Come back to something like practicing a speech, or getting ready to deliver a speech. If you're given a subject, Vincent, on that, do you actually get into the bathroom or stand in front of the mirror at home and go through it?
I go through it with something in the microwave, and the bell will ring when my time is up, and so something ready to eat at the same time.
I like that one. I think that's ingenious, to be honest. So but what you're saying to me is, so you can see your image in the glass of the microwave, the grub's cooking inside, and when you hear that bing, time is up.
It's a happy place to be, isn't it?
It's a very good place to be. But practice makes perfect.
Yes.
You agree with that?
Yeah, the more times you do something, apart from practice makes perfect, but the one thing that I'm not good at is reading poetry, because I'm confined to somebody else's words. I don't like the confinement, but it's something that I have to overcome.
Do you use prompt notes or cards when you're delivering a speech?
I don't, because I know where I'm going with a speech. For every minute of speech, there's 3 hours of preparation. And I'm generally running around in my head for about 2 weeks before I do it.
So you don't use the cards? Sue or Janet? Yeah.
Yes, I do. What I do is I always try to memorise the opening part of my speech and the final part of my speech. And then I have prompts on little cards for the body of the speech, which I try to stick to about 3 points within the body. And I just have little prompts on a card to remind me of those 3 points throughout the body. And I find that works for me.
Sue?
I have to say that I would use some similar to Janet's system. Everybody's slightly different. You can see people and they'll write out the speech and they will learn it word by word. I can't do that. It's just not in me. But what I'll do is I'll break down. Your speeches are timed as well, as Vincent said, with the ding of the microwave. Your speeches are timed, so you know what kind of information you need to put into a speech. And I'll break it down into that time and know what points I have. And the main points then I'll put onto a prompt card, just in case I need it. It's kind of like a little security for
So
yourself.
the point we're all saying today is that you must prepare, and whatever way you want to leave yourself more confident, be it that you memorise it like Vincent, that you read it, over a lot of times and you have it with you, all the prompt cards, whatever works for you, go with it. That's what you're saying.
Totally.
Yeah.
What about eye contact that you touched on there? How important is that when you're talking to people?
Very important. That's something I couldn't do on a one-to-one basis before I joined Toastmasters. But I can't answer why not, but now I'm confident and I can look people in the eye while I'm talking to them. I don't look away. That was one thing that Toastmasters gave me. The other thing that it gave me was to learn how to listen, because somebody might want to talk to me more so than I'd want to talk to them, and that brings out feelings. And the Toastmasters brings out feelings within the individual. Because if you're evaluating somebody, if I was evaluating Sue or Janet, right, and they were after giving a speech, I'd have to take into consideration where they are giving that speech. If they touched on something that's very personal to themselves, you can't turn round and sort of ridicule them. You have to take that into consideration. I, myself, always have to put humour into it, so I read the audience as I'm speaking to them.
And that's a great skill to have. And I noticed one thing about Vincent, ladies. Would you care to comment on it there? He's very gestureful. What about gestures?
Gestures are important as well. Sometimes you can use them, sometimes you can't. Depends on what you need. For me, I probably would use more eye contact than using my hands and gestures and that. But it's all part of what your flair is going to be when you're giving your speech. And that's Vincent summed up with gestures.
And also as well, we work through a set of manuals, and as Vincent touched on earlier, each of the speeches within the manual has specific objectives, so you do get to encourage to use gestures. And as for eye contact, I like to scan the audience, starting at one end, go across, come forward, so that you feel you're taking everyone in, and try and involve them in what you're doing. And I think your body and hand gestures do the same thing.
If you're using props, Janet, I'll stay with you for a minute, in a business environment, say it's a more formal delivery of a speech, and you can come in on this, Sue, if you wish. Talk to me about using slides. There's a great debate about this, whether they distract, how they should be set out, and how much you should use them.
Well, when we have got one particular section that encourages people to use overhead projectors or other visual aids, and what we would do with that is we would give very constructive feedback to the person of how well they use the props, or whether they relied upon them, or whether they distracted, or whether they blocked them from the audience. And that's a big part of it, so that people become very confident with using those visual aids and props.
I have to agree, getting used to using PowerPoint. I did one presentation recently in front of actually all the committees in our division, and I was using PowerPoint, and you have to be very careful that you don't block the viewing platform that you're doing from, and that you know what's going to come up again. But again, that's preparation. And with Janet said, one of the topics that we would do in our speeches allows you to practice, and you can do that as many times as you want to really get the hang of it.
If something goes wrong, always double check it. I give that piece of advice myself. But if you're a Toastmaster and you're well used to it, you should be able to carry the day. What about pace of speech and, levels and tone? How important are all those things to deliver a good speech, Vincent?
Tone brings out the feelings. The pace that you go at, always give your audience time to catch up with you. Pause, the way I'm pausing now, and everyone will listen. But if you're giving a monologue tone the whole time, you're up there to get 63 points across. Nobody will hear one of them. But go in with your 2 or 3 points, have it organised, and always remember that the audience has to keep up with you. That's showing respect for an audience. And you have to breathe. Always remember to take in air, otherwise you'll pass out in front of them.
Pace, the pace, the pace you deliver at. You'll often see people, they get up and they just know, let me off this podium or platform as quick as you can.
Well, there's 2 things here. If you're going to deliver a 5 to 7 minute speech, I was always my speech was too fast, and I was always got far too much information in. And one of the things that I was taught with the feedback was to slow down, give pauses. So then when I'm drafting out a speech, I work on an average of between 110 and 120 words a minute, and I try to make sure that I've got those amount of words in for my speech. And I know that if I deliver the speech in the 5 to 7 minutes with those amount of words, I'm doing it at the right pace. So it helped me a great deal with that, and